Welcome back to Aliens and Angels, the podcast. So this is our weekly live Q&A community chat, and today I'm very pleased to bring on my special guest, Philip Kinsella. Philip Kinsella is the author of numerous books and articles on UFOs and consciousness. Since Philip's own alien abduction back in the winter of 1989, along with the appearance of UFOs at close range, he has been driven to find the truth of what may be behind these alien intrusions and has highlighted several theories surrounding the big question of the Greys themselves. His speculation emphasizes a better understanding of multidimensional levels of consciousness and our need to look outside of the box of rational thinking, which science continually denies within the advent of such strange singularities. Please post your questions and comments during the live chat, and you're welcome to join our Facebook group called Aliens and Angels. All of the links are featured below in the description, and do please check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and share my content with your friends. So I'm very excited to bring on our special guest, Philip Kinsella. Philip, how are you doing today?
Hello, Karen. It's been a busy day, and I'm very honored to be back on your program, most notably Aliens and Angels, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bit different format than last time. And we've already got a guest that's saying, Don Rogers at March 4th Productions is saying, hello, lovely people. Hello, Don. And I
Hello.
know lurking behind the scenes is Canadian Spinja. And I want to say hello to both of you. So for those of you who don't know, actually, Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja are going to get married the first week of August, and they've asked me to officiate their wedding. So it's a great honor. I'm very excited, and we're working towards creating the perfect day for them. So today, the topic I thought we could throw out there is, are aliens and angels the same thing? Are they completely different? Is one real and not the other? How are people viewing this subject and this topic? And I thought I'd turn it over to you, Philip, to give us your 2 cents on the matter.
Thank you very much. Well, everything is always held within theoretical content, and our understanding of aliens and indeed angels is very controversial. I think that there are two sides to the coin here. It depends on how we interpret the phenomena as we go through the experience. I think most notably, if we look, and I have studied and I'm connected with near-death research in terms of how people experience their encounters with loved ones and masters, they will see them as divine beings. The same with those linked within the annals of ufology. There are some entities that come forward that are benevolent, and they will see them as perhaps angels. So I think it's based on interpretation and the way the events actually unfold. But it is an interesting question because I have spent many long years researching into the abduction phenomena. And this is interesting as well as alien encounters. And I have always been open to the fact that not all of them are negative. It's the same with humans. You have the good, the bad, and as they say, the ugly. So I think the same can be said for these multidimensional, interdimensional beings. Are aliens and angels one of the same? Well, that is a good question going back to that point. I think perhaps that it's how you interpret it. But my understanding is that I think we may be dealing with something far different. I think in my terminology, angels are very different from aliens. Because when we look at the human, and we've discussed this before, Karen, about our genus, our creation, if we go back into the antediluvian cultures, and most notably within those codices that are hidden or suppressed, now starting to become open for the public to view through certain brilliant researchers, tells us a very different story. And it may be a shock to find out that our creation wasn't down to a man with a white beard and whipped up in 6 days, but far more ingeniously created. And we ourselves may have been generated by gods, no more than perhaps elevated humans when we get to the stage, perhaps we've done that already, where we can replicate life ourselves. So, how we view the reality with regards to aliens and angels, very, very delicate subject matter. But I have always seen angels as some kind of connection, divine essence to the one, the source, the Godhead, the all that is. And if we go back into antediluvian cultures, again, dealing with those codices, it talks of several falls of man, or not necessarily man, because the female aspect has been scrubbed out. So we have to look at both polarities of the male and female, the alpha, omega, all these things. So, my understanding is that I do believe that angels are a separate component to those of aliens. Angels are, as we understand, not just beings with wings that denotes their rank, but very powerful entities that are androgynous in nature and have not incarnated upon this earth sphere. And what's interesting in my research is we're looking at the Greys, for instance, or a certain faction of them, not all of them, and how they seem so far removed from what we represent in terms of our sovereignty, in terms of our divinity, because these spectres appear to have lost all the vestiges of love, of compassion, of understanding, of taste, of smell, of aging. And perhaps there is a faction of them that have fallen themselves and are trying to find the answers through us as a reproductive and intelligent and certainly separate entity, because the Greys seem to operate as a one hive mind consciousness, and we as a human species are individual in nature. So it's an interesting point, yes.
Yeah, good answer and comprehensive too. I myself have had both extraterrestrial contact and angelic contact. I don't know why, I'm nobody special, but it came to me. The angelic contact was a one-time thing, and it happened many years before my ET contact, and it may have had something to do with it. I don't know. But I did not see beings that were humanoids. I saw points of light with light flashing out the sides, which gave them the illusion of wings. And I don't know if it was one being or many beings, but appeared as like 1,000 points of light. And this was while I was awake. I wasn't under the influence of anything. But it was a time of great crisis in my life where I was in a deep state of grieving, and I was contemplating going to take my own life. And then I had this visitation, and I was told that if I wanted to exit, we could, because life is never meant to be unbearably painful. There are exit points, but if I wanted to stay, they would give me a gift. And I didn't know what to make of this. It didn't last very long, and then it was over. And I said out loud, I said, well, wait a minute. Do I have to decide right now? I have to think about this. I mean, who has, I'm assuming it was an angel. I don't know, or angels. They spoke in one voice in perfect harmony as though it was one voice, but it was like 1,000 voices. It was an incredible experience. Like, I can't even
Mm,
really describe it. So
mm,
it took me a few days, and I thought about what I wanted, and I decided I wanted wisdom, because I knew if I had wisdom, I could make everything else in my life work. And then it was several years later I had extraterrestrial contact. Now, what I want to say is I think angels and extraterrestrials are quite different, but they might be on the same sort of if you want to use a spectrum for looking at the different classes of beings. I think some beings are lower frequency, lower on the spectrum, and some are higher. And I think there are some extraterrestrials as we would understand them. And again, we're very limited in the way we perceive, right? And
Yes.
so I think there's some of them that may be very high frequency, very close to angels, but I do see them as being very different things. What are your thoughts on that, fella?
Well, I will tell you that my twin brother and I have an identical twin brother called Ronald, and I had an experience with him with this divinity, as it were. At the time, we were creating a children's character called Magnus the Micromut. We illustrated the books through black ink and very detailed drawings, and we tried all sorts of publishers. This is when we were very young, in our 20s, as it were. And everything we were doing was failing. And I will also say here for the record that a very important lady who is no longer with us, a very powerful lady, was also behind my brother and myself. We're very honored with that. And I'm not name dropping, but she was top of the sovereignty of England, and for 33 years. And the encouragement that we had from these people was incredible. But we had to self-publish these books, and we used to send them to this lady, a batch of them. And the encouragement continued. And I remembered on the 7th series of this book, Magnus the Micromut and I can't remember if it's the Pharaoh's Curse, or it incorporated this lady in them as well. We'd sold only about 3 copies at work because we weren't published authors then. We were later by other books. And we were broke. We'd sold it. We'd spent all our money printing these books, and then we were trying to sell them to make some money. The press before had been very helpful, very understanding. And on the Saturday that we came back from doing a little signing session at the place where we worked, they allowed us to do that. We sold only 3 copies, and we made next to nothing back. And I remembered my brother and I sitting in the back of our garden, and the stars were out. It was a cold night. There were clouds, in the air, and the moon was out. And my brother and I were both sat outside, huddled together, and we started to break down because for years and years and years our dream was coming to nothing. All that we tried with other publishers, they weren't interested. The art, I must say, was absolutely, I think today, even now, stands up. But you had to be a big name then to be published. So we broke down, and then something extraordinary happened, and we will both never forget this. And this is actually detailed in several of my books. One of the most recent ones, Guardians of the Dead, which you can get on Amazon. And as we broke down, it felt like this hand was holding us both. It was a noticeable experience. And then down by the back gate, there was this light that appeared in the formation of what I can only describe as an angel, but the best was yet to come. Because when we looked up into the sky, there was a cloud that was in the perfect formation, and I say perfect formation, of the lion's head. And when the cloud moved in this perfect shape, one of the stars came through its eye, and my brother and I both stood up. It's documented. It happened years ago, and we were so amazed. I mean, it took many years later for us to find some, moderate success, I suppose, with publishers. Nothing to do with a bestseller status or anything like that. And then, of course, we had a computer company approach us to want to make the character Magnus the Micromut, the cybernetic dog, into a computer game because they'd seen it in the press, local press here, and of course it all fell flat. And I think I think Magnus came out through an ebook. This is long before Amazon. Through an ebook company took him and was experimenting with his ebooks. So that was a moment of divinity, and the feeling that it was almost godly, if I use that word, I think in terms of our reference to divinity. When you are at your knees, when you are genuinely at your breaking point, when you have tried sincerely all that you can within your heart and your soul, and you're left broken. They always say that the phoenix arises from the ashes through a rebirth. We didn't go through a rebirth, by the way. It was still quite hard to get through it, but there was a sign. And I knew that that was not extraterrestrial in terms of the way we see it, but rather operating on a frequency of divinity, as though there was some connection within the human spirit, the spark of what we all carry within us. And all of the people, all of the things that we have done does not mean to say that we have failed, because how can you fail when you are trying? So we branched out into other areas, and of course my life changed with regards to not psychical research or near-death research, consciousness, but also within the Department of UFO Research as well. And I always say, I think that the divinity, the spark, comes from within you, because we're all connected to this divine source. And we're all separate in terms of our connection here, but we are all connected as one. When we return to the other side, we still retain our individuality, of course, but we're still connected by that spark, that connection. And that, I think, is read by those angels, by those influences from the other side. That is read, it's felt within the ether, within the quantum state, when you know you have a chart or a plan and things aren't going quite your way. So I do believe, and I've heard many stories from other people before, of this divinity intersecting within their life, interconnecting with them at the most desperate hour. So most definitely. And I was able to distinguish that this phenomena was divine and was not extraterrestrial. At least that's my understanding of how I interpreted, how I translated that whole experience. So we're all important. As I said before, we're all connected. And I think the problem is that we're all trying to, as I said to you before, Karen, that we're all trying to squeeze it into the same box and it won't go in there. But that was incredible. And yours as well, incredible story as well, experience. So yes, they do come in. And, you know, if someone's devout UFO believer, which I am anyway, and they can't see any other way of within the religious ideologies or religious experiences, maybe they will interpret that as some kind of UFO-related phenomena. But for me, that was divine intervention and most needed at that point. So quite incredible.
Wonderful, wonderful
Yes,
experience. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, my experiences were very, very different. And yeah, there was, I mean, but it still strikes me as strange that I was offered a gift, and I chose well. Now it didn't mean like me and my naivety, I thought they would just pour the wisdom into my brain, but it didn't work that way. I had all kinds of challenges, but the difference was I was able to have a profound learning from every challenge, where before that I had been missing the boat. So that was the big difference there. Now, we've got a question from the chat here. Don Rogers at March 4th Productions asks, if you think that all share consciousness from a single source, humans, aliens, and angels.
A very good question. And I have to point that forward, a very complex question. From our understanding, when you get involved with UFO research, researching into abductions, alien encounters, experiences that people have had, and then going into the psychic element as well, I think my understanding at this stage, because we all go through some form of transmutation within our thoughts. We all start off like I did back in the heyday when I was a kid growing up, believing that UFOs are nuts and bolts craft, that they're all wonderful and lovely and they're going to come and land, and we meet them and shake hands and be shown around their craft and, open our hearts to them, our souls, and hope that they'll be able to help us and understand us. That is wonderful and amazing. But I do believe also that as we go forward, we find that the UFO phenomena has kind of like morphed incredibly within our understanding, and as we change, the phenomena seems to change. So we seem to be part and parcel of this same force, as it were. I think it's interesting and fascinating to contemplate, but I do believe that it's possible that we are all one of the same. If we are if we do derive from one source, then this source has split itself into billions upon billions upon billions of fragments and emanated this source into varied experiences. I know that within the creation mythos, what's interesting is that the vision of the lion didn't make any sense to me other than strength and courage. But when you look into the codices in the past, there is a character called Sophia that we know was part and parcel of the creation of the material realm through her descent and fall and separation from source. And it was Sophia that we understand who, I don't think she deliberately wanted to do it, but she generated energies, lower consciousnesses that started to gravitate towards her and then descend within the field of creation even further, where resonation became matter. So, if we believe, as most researchers do, that Sophia was not only responsible within the blueprint and creation of us as the hominid, as the human, as the spirit, but also of the soul of those encompassing characters that were at the forefront of her creation, that we call the Greys or the Archonic mind, well, we are one of the same because we gravitated in that sphere and we just separated. And I know there's a lot of arguments of people saying, well, you know, if we just touch on very briefly here the archons, that they are separate from us. Well, yes, in terms that they do not have what we have, which is spirit, so we understand it, because the soul is the animation and the spirit is the part that carries this divine spark of divinity. Our interpretation and translation of that way is how we understand it. We could be wrong, but I believe that it's possible that we are all part of Source, and that Source has separated itself in order, and I've always known this, in order to understand more about itself through the creation of us. So we're all part and parcel of this journey, this experience called life. And so I believe that it's possible, I could be wrong, that we are all connected to the same thing. It's rather like when you make a movie. We have to think about the cameraman, the producers, the writers, or what's happening in the back of the scene. And then of course we create the movie. We have the actors that come on and they do their acting and they perform their parts. But like we are here through this incarnation process of incarnation, where we are going through our lines and, you know, making a few bloobs along the way, and then you watch the program or the film and it's like, wow, look at that. Oh, that's inspiring. That is. Look at that. That is amazing. So I believe that in this form, in this connection, within this incarnation, and with limited memory of where our true sovereignty belongs, because we're limited in our flow of conscious awareness within this biological form, it is possible that we are walking this wonderful drama of life. And the mystery of deepens when we're trying to find what we are, what we represent, what makes us human, what is beyond the human. And, you know, if we think about it, there was a British author, a very famous British author called C.S. Lewis, Clive Staples Lewis, Professor Clive Staples Lewis, who wrote the Narnia Chronicles, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And he said, when someone asked him, what would you like to be? Would you like to be the boy or the magician? And he said, no, I'd like to be the boy caught in the magician's spell, because the magician knows all of the tricks. You see, I think that although we have to deal with pain and multiple experiences here and loss, I do believe that we are all connected and that we are finding the greater cause of what it is to be through the eyes of the Godhead, through billions upon billions of fragments of different life forms, different experiences. And what an adventure that is. I still think there are a few things that need tweaking, by the way. And I think some things on the Earth plane have gone wrong. But there you have it. That's how I see it.
Wonderful. And Don Rogers said, excellent answer. Thank you. Yeah, that was fantastic. Now, I believe similar. Um, I believe that there is existence within time and space, and there's existence outside of time and space. And I believe that it's our ability, as the Monroe Institute has
Oh, yes.
illustrated, that we can go outside of time and space and have experiences there too. So, like you said earlier, it's much more complex
Mm.
than a very practical level that we're talking about it on. But I also believe that we're all avatars, and to our true selves are someplace safe. And that helps a lot because, you know, it can be kind of scary being on Earth at this time. But I also recently came to the understanding that even the animals are avatars. We're all parts of Source. And then, as an extension to that, I think that all the extraterrestrial beings that have been experienced by humans are also connected to Source. So I'm really not taking away from anything you've said. I'm just sort of putting it into my own words and my own experience. And I think there also is a concept called karma. And I think
Mm.
that's part of our learning experience. And it makes sense to me that the extraterrestrials would also be governed by the same sort of rules that we are. Now, I think the angels could be a little different. Philip, what's your understanding of karma? Do you think it's a real thing? And it may or may not be tied into reincarnation, but do you think all beings are governed by the same sort of spiritual principles?
That's very interesting as well. When I was researching the greys through personal reasons, I wondered why it was that a species that apparently cannot reproduce was interested and found a species that could, and why they appear to be replicating this process of reproduction. And it's possible that the greys have lost the essence of what they once represented, i.e., the spirit, and they're trying to find that divine spark through us. So have they themselves gone through a process of devolution? It's possible. Are we as a human species ourselves going through that process of devolution? I think we're heading that way, especially with regards to transhumanism. But I will say to you, what's interesting is with regards to karma, what thy soweth, thou shall reap. I remembered reading that on a church window, and I laughed because I thought, well, all of the efforts that my brother and I had gone through, all of the trials and tribulations, didn't seem to amount to much. And it doesn't mean to make me ungrateful. It's just at that point I was sore and I was bitter, and it will happen with anyone, not in terms of like people, but with regards to that saying, what thy soweth, thou shall reap. But I do believe it's important that there are and have to be repercussions, because it's no different. How else will we learn? We need to be slapped on the hand now and again to say that's wrong, and it hurts, but we learn from it. And I think that is part and parcel of the creation process. I think that if it was all generated through randomness, it doesn't make any sense. In terms of the creation hypothesis, most cosmologists will tell you, well, it was just a big bang and that was it. Well, what it was there before the bang? Can you really consider nothingness? And what generated that spark to begin with? Because cause does not come without effect. And I think the same can be said with regards to our understanding of karma. We hear so much about this. And, is it right? Is it wrong? Is everything just there so you can go and do something to someone and not suffer the consequences as a result of balancing out the pain or the disruption that you have administered to that individual? No, I believe that it should be done because it's called justice. It's weighing the balancing the scales. Whether or not this is passed from one life to the other is also interesting, and I believe that that is possible. Certainly within the research and documentation of Edgar Cayce, one of your great sleeping prophets. He did a lot of past life connections, and he found that some people that he was reading for when he went into their past lives found that they were being afflicted in this life because of something that happened in the past life. So this is the only way that we can measure in terms of some understanding of this karma, as it was called. So I believe it's interesting, and I think it also serves to remind us, to help us, because Dolores Cannon as well was able to heal people when they came to terms, even going back into past life regression. So I believe that we have a blueprint. I believe to a degree that blueprint is pliable. It's it can change depending on the life experience that we're going through, and indeed other people can change and muck things up for us. But it would make no sense to me if we lived in a universe under intelligent design, just moving forward and doing what we did to other people and with the environment without having some understanding of what we're doing to it, how we're affecting that. So this brings into effect the emotional department, a very important component, and something most of these greys seem to lack. So I believe that perhaps they themselves, or a certain species of them, have gone through some form of devolution and are trying to recreate themselves through the loss of that spark of divinity, as it were. I may be wrong, but why would you create a new genus? And I came up with this theory back in 1996 called Spirits in a Material World, connecting, that was published in a magazine, a UFO magazine here called Alien Encounters. It's quite big out there at that time. Why it was that a species such as the Greys, extraterrestrials, we currently term them, non-human, intelligences, why they're interested in us, and what was it they wanted from us. But we have to be open to all forms of speculation. Are they creating a new genus because we're about to wipe ourselves out? Who knows? Are they the gods of old? Are they the ones that seeded life here, that seeded us? We don't know. But I think it's very important. So, in a long winded way, Karen, I believe that karma does seem to have some kind of weight of conviction when it comes to our journey. Because how else are we able to evolve? How else are we to learn and develop as a species? Because sometimes we're brought to our knees, and then when we rise, we become gods. When we've been brought down and thwarted, we think about it, and then we think, well, you know what? I understand what I've done wrong. I understand that I can change. And that little bit of pain, whatever it is that I've gone through, will remind me of the greater cause of why I'm here. So, yes, I do believe there's some kind of truth in that, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you for that. So, I have I have heard and I have seen the possibility that there are groups of beings, non-human beings, who have developed technologies to somehow separate themselves from source, thinking that they have a better idea on how to be. And then once they're caught up in that, they're sort of stuck in that, they're trying to find their way back. But
Mhm.
that's sort of a little bit of an in-depth analysis. So I was just thinking, let's take a short break. And it's only 2 minutes. And when we come back, let's pick that up where we left off, Philip.
Okay.
Everybody thrives when we have a mission. And there is no greater mission than to become the change we wish to see in the world. Sometimes, though, we need a little help from consultation and support services. Have you discovered that this world is not what you thought it was? Have recent global events awakened you and leave you feeling unsettled? Do you feel isolated by your new, not so popular beliefs? It is a big shock to wake up and find that the old familiar world is gone. It can be disturbing to go down the various rabbit holes, only to find that the information is difficult to digest, and few people are willing to talk openly about it. Would you like to learn how to thrive in this new state of awareness? You are not a conspiracy theorist. You are awakening, and once you find your way through it, there are many blessings waiting on the other side. My name is Karen Holton, and I offer vital services that may be just what you need, and support for your journey into the weird and wonderful. Check out my awakening support and ascension consultation services, created to support individuals with their chosen alternative realities and lifestyles, health and recovery, and their spiritual adventures. For more details, check out the various vital services found on my website, and be assured that I have found personal success with every category featured. My website is www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton HealthCoach.com. There, thank you for being patient with that. I have to do a little promotion in each of my videos, so people know that I have services and products and things that also help to support the show.
Hmm.
So where we left off was, I sort of introduced a bit of a big subject, but that was, Philip, do you think it's possible that there are groups, because let's face it, there are planets and civilizations, I'm sure, out there that are billions of years older than ours, that have had so much time to evolve. Do you think that it could be possible that some have developed technology thinking that an
Oh,
independent from source way had some merit, and then once they're trapped in that, they're kind of stuck there? And could they be interacting with humans?
absolutely. I remembered when I was a kid and I saw Star Wars here in England. And when I saw that, and I remembered the opening scene of those spaceships, Princess Leia's ship trying to escape one of the Star Destroyers. And that always affected me because I thought, wow, could that be happening somewhere else across the distant galaxy? You bet it could. And I was always fascinated with this, this idea that there are other intelligences beyond our current place within this cosmos, as it were. And when we look at the cosmos, it's frightening. I mean, literally in terms of its expanse. And we are a pinprick in the middle of a desert, literally in terms of our human life, which is very small by comparison, tiny. But I will say to you that it's possible that a certain faction of these intelligences had gone through some form of devolution. And with their minds, yes, why not? Create technology beyond their wildest dreams. Everything that we know is created through the mind, within our earth plane. We use the mind to build, to construct. But because we're in a biological system and a material system, we construct this way very slowly. But there are other intelligences that perhaps have advanced themselves to the level where construction, like those in the spirit, is done instantly within the mind. And we know that when we pass over, that mind is the world, is the realm. It's interesting, rather like the Borg from Star Trek. If we take that as an example, the writers of that screenplay are nothing less than genius, because it talks about an extraterrestrial force that's lost their soul, their spirit, as it were, and have no sense or understanding of love, of compassion, of connectivity with other fellow creatures within the universe. So I do believe that. But there would come a point in time, I think, where they would almost have to reconsider, because on a mechanical level, if we use that word lightly, with no emotions, that's quite dangerous territory. So I believe that we have free will, we have choice, and that free will and those choices govern our future, our path. And of course, the divine essence of the connection allows us to have that free will to explore more into the purpose of what the divine is and what we are. I've always said that we are like explorers, like the escape pods on Star Wars again, where they send these little pods out to go and explore other planets to see what's on them or look for people. And that we are each tiny explorers that's separated from source, billions upon billions, maybe even more than that, a fantastically amount that are separated to come into these different systems of reality and to experience life in its varied forms and ways. And what a better way than to forget through the process of our original, source. If I was God, let me give an example, and I was the all-encompassing God, or the power, neither male nor female, but I'm like, well, I want to find out more about what I am, what I can do. And then, of course, splitting all of that across and throughout. And then we, each one of us, asking these questions: what is God? What is source? And then through our eyes connecting with other people, and in a lot of cases finding that godliness in others, those selfless acts of that people that do, that make us, that change us, the creative process. I think it's incredible that we're part and parcel of a process of creation and multiple creations that go on and on and on. The difficulty is that we may get to a stage where we lose sight of that. And this is where things may go wrong. But again, we are given free choice and free will to do just that. So I believe we're all connected and we're all linked to that source, the Godhead. But I think that source is separated into varied intelligences, and it's exploring these different territories. So it's possible that some intelligences have lost their way and are trying to find their way back to light, back to source, as it were. And I think that's possibly what one faction of the Greys are doing through us. It's
Yes.
possible. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I felt that too, and and it's interesting that they are much like the Borg, except they don't have the mechanical parts, but they're trying to gain their way back through interbreeding with humanity,
Mm,
which brings me to another subject that I think we have time to get into, and that is there's a saying that God is love. In my personal journey, and examining things from this way and that way and upside down in every way possible, spending a lot of time in deep thought about things, I've concluded that the only way forward that is productive and healthy is through the path of love. And
Mm.
we know that love is a very high frequency emotion, but it's much more than that. Love involves self control and mildness and faithfulness and goodness and so many peacefulness and so many different attributes. It's kind of like a basket of virtues. And it seems to me that there are beings, humans among us, not all humans, but certainly quite a few of us, and other beings that have come to the conclusion that the only path forward that actually works is through the path of love or the harmonic of love. And all other ways, the psychopathic ways where they lack, whether it's human or
Yeah.
non-human intelligence, that lack the compassion and empathy and the ability to love, those are all destructive. They don't last. They
No.
go extinct. They can't, it doesn't work. It seems that love is the only path that works. So I just want to get your thoughts on that, Philip. And how do you feel about that? And do you think there's something to it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Love is the creator, and love is there to build, to strengthen, to give us hope. And I do like that word hope. A lot of my friends know I like that word hope, definitely. Um, I think, and Phil, with regards to the past in terms of certain avatars, because I believe we're all avatars, that certain master avatars had incarnated to remind us of this fact. Because I think on Earth here, through our sovereignty on this planet, there have been some forces that have tried very hard to subjugate that love, to
Mhm.
control, to douse out that spirit through fear, through propaganda. We can see this happening today in our modern times. But I dare say that those modern times were very much evident going back into our, what we call the antediluvian cultures that were just as smart and brilliant as we are today. Certain epochs have fallen and been brought to their knees through the greed and corruption and lovelessness from others. So I believe that certain masters had incarnated and walked to remind us of our sovereignty and to remind us, to show us the way towards that love, to that light, and to make us aware that the only way that we can evolve is through love. You know what it's like when you have fallen in love with someone, or there is no other than that connection of seeing something so beautiful and amazing through your eyes, just like the love of creating something new and believing in that, bringing its shape and form. That goes deep within the heart, within the soul, that resonates on varied levels because we are vibration. Everything in this life vibrates on certain frequencies. We know that within the quantum realm. And we must not forget either that light is vibration. And vibration, then, as it lowers its vibrational content, becomes more in line with creating matter, depending on what level that signaling or vibration has connected with. So I believe that we are light, we are vibration, we are consciousness. And sure, if you are corrupt, if you are psychotic, if you are nothing less than greed and corruption, sociopathic, then these are very dangerous qualities. And this will bring some form of devolution within your spirit or, your consciousness. And we understand this also within levels of the afterlife. We know that through the brilliant work of many people, including, as you've mentioned, Karen Robert Monroe, creator of many, experiences where Hemisync, he created Hemisync and also wrote his 3 amazing books. I have the new one about him, the biography on him, by the way. It's very interesting. But we do know there's an astral plane, and the astral plane is linked with thought. But we also learn that the development of us as a human species, our entry into that realm is inescapable because you take in with what you are, with what you carry within yourself. There is no escaping it. So I believe that there are varied levels that we ourselves have to take account for. And I believe that when we pass over, that the measuring of that experience that we've had in terms of light or darkness depends on where we fall within the grand scheme of life. And it's interesting because with regards to the grays, another theory I came up with, way back then was that we could be dealing with an entity or an intelligence that has removed itself from that light and is trying to find a way back through its lower gravitational vibrational field to ours. And the only way it can do it to make that connection, that bridge, is by incorporating spirit with flesh and dealing with it this way, if we understand that. So it is very interesting. But yes, absolutely, love is the supreme quality of everything. Love creates. It also, I think, teaches us that there is a part of us that we can't explain. When you deal with love, sometimes it can upset you in good ways, sometimes in not so good ways, but you know what love is because it comes from within. So we are all creators. We're all part of the creation process. There are some, unfortunately, who do not wish to create and would rather destroy. But I can assure you, there are many, many good souls out there who are more in tune with love. And just very briefly here, very quickly, we can understand that this is so because every time that we as a species go through an upliftment within our consciousness, the system that we serve finds ways of bringing that down through propaganda, through bad news, through fear, control. Because I believe there's a war going on, a silent war, and maybe this intelligence from the past is still somewhere here that's governing its puppets that it will reward with plenty of money, or the gongs in the world and power. But no, at the end, it will serve them no good, because what you take within your heart and your soul is what you take with you. There's no escaping that fact.
Wow. Yeah. I agree 100%. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And so, I'm not a religious person, but I do try to walk in the path of love. And
Oh yeah.
there's a saying that, we're supposed to love other people the way we love ourselves. But I look around and I see a lot of people don't know how to love themselves. The whole concept of what is love can frequently be somehow dissolved in the system. And like, for instance, patience, I got to practice that every day. Patience, that's one of my toughest challenges.
That's the
Um,
same
you
with me
know,
as well. The same
is
with
it?
me. Yes.
and
Uh,
um and self-control, like, for instance, if I have a child, am I going to let it eat nothing but candy and drink soda pop? No, I'm going to want it to eat in a way that's going to be the most beneficial for that child. Well, then wouldn't I be wanting to do that for myself as well? So I
mm.
always try to bring it back to my own personal path. Doesn't matter how smart I think I am, or what complex concepts I'm able to hold in my mind. They don't really matter much if I don't have the basics, which tie back into love. So I'm not trying to be all preachy here on a Sunday. I just I want people to look at themselves and learn how to love themselves in a greater way. And then we change our own vibrational frequency, and it's contagious, and we can change the world, which is my big goal, to help. I don't know. I mean, I know it's a lot to ask of one old lady to change the world, but I'm going to do my part, darn it. I'm going to do my part.
Yes, I think, we're all part and parcel. Every single one of us are unique and important. No one is any better than anyone else. We bring to the table what we experience and what we learn. And that's as good as any. And I've always understood, what a world this would be if we could say to someone, if I was in charge, not that I would want to be in charge, I wouldn't be able to carry the weight of that responsibility, but if we had a supreme council of the most loving beings, people here, that governed our world and said, now, Karen, Philip, what would you really like to do in life? What can you bring to the table? And I know there's some people who wouldn't, but look at it this way. What can you bring to the table? What would you really like to do? And you say, well, I'd like to do this, or Karen will say, I'd like to do that, and I'd like to help a little bit towards, replenishing, reconstructing, bringing new ideas to make our world a better place. Now, we can all see what's happening. There are billions upon billions of souls who have never been afforded that option. They are unfortunately not able to get the job of their choice because maybe they haven't been privy to the education that they would like to have, or the opportunity isn't there. So think about all of the wasted energy and the thoughts and the ideas that's passed us by. And what's really annoying is that I just read the remark there, it's wonderful. What's really annoying is that this system that we serve is not interested in you or me or angel wings or whoever's here within the world. They're not interested in that. All they're interested in is money, power, and control. And I've always said that this evil must be removed, because in the only way to advance our species, and it's not just about the angelic connection or the alien connection, it's about where we are, because this planet is a living entity, Gaia, Sophia, whatever you want to call her, and it's a living system. And if you look at it, and I know it's been said a million times over, billion times over, it's being destroyed. And so I think that light carriers such as yourself and myself, although we can't get out there and get to the tallest steeple and tell that lot to get a move on and change things, because that won't happen, because they'll crush you like an ant. But we are aware of it, and that is within the heart. So I believe most definitely that we do have assistance and those elevated beings of love and light. But the system of evil and darkness, which has been in control for a long time, I believe, will
Yeah.
try and shut that out or close it down. This is why this subjugation and fear and propaganda and control is not allowing us to ascend, an ascension in terms of us connecting with that divine source of all that is, to shatter it, to break it away. Because every time we come to that point within our evolution, there is something that's cooked up by the system to bring us all down through fear. And that is there, fear, the complete opposite to love. So
Yeah.
we are all on the same page there, I think, in terms of understanding of what's going on. It's not just about the aliens wherever they're hanging out, or the angels who are, the most excellent and high of the high. People have said that they're evil and they're extraterrestrial. No, I believe that there are separate entities, because the divine, the source, has and would have that ring of protection in terms to look out for those other souls coming down into varied levels of connectivity with life throughout the universe. So it's possible. At least that's my romanticized version, the way I like to see things. I mean, I may be wrong, but I know through that experience I had many long years ago with the hand that was holding my brother and I, like in the palm of their hands. It was so noticeable. It was like, if I may use the word, and I'm not religious, I believe in a divine source, the creator. Mine's more metaphysical in terms of my understanding, but for want of ease of explanation, it was God that was holding me and my brother. And this projection of this intelligence then infused the light in the angelic form. And then, of course, the face, the perfect face, the absolutely perfect construction of a lion's face with the star coming through the eye. That was a sign. And I will never forget it. And I've had many experiences, and I document them exactly as they happened, with no added or subtraction to it. So I know that we are each important to our own evolution. And unfortunately, and it is true, there are many people out there who don't agree with you, or they've got to put you right, or they want to detract you from this. And you think, I'm tired of that. We all just need to respect one another's belief systems, because this is why we can't squeeze it all into the same box, which some people are trying to do. It's separate, it's individual, it's unique. It's a journey that we as a soul are going through to find the bigger part of not just us, but creation itself,
Yep. Oh, that's so well said, and so on point. Thank you so much. Now, we're running out of time quickly here, Philip. So I want to give you some space to tell the viewers and the listeners, what are you up to? Tell us about any books you want to spotlight, anything going on, and where people can find you. That's really important too.
Well, first of all, I need to give myself some space, because sometimes I'm just also I'm just so I'm working on a new book at the moment for a publisher. It is a spiritual book that looks into incarnation, reincarnation, the soul, the bigger question, the real research into the reality of the Godhead. And our purpose here, I think it doesn't mean to say I've got it worked out, because I haven't, but we have to bring into the fray some, theoretical content. I have several books. I mean, most of my other books that were published by other publishers through contract are out of print now, because Amazon came along, and of course that's. But Amazon is a really wonderful platform. I have Terrestrial Trespassers out, which looks at the greys, abductions, and errors of high strangeness. I also have another book called You, the Public Deceived, The Grandeur of Deception, which is about ufology, and also Guardians of the Dead, and another book, A Passage to Eternity, The Enigma of the Dead, UFOs and Aliens. And of course, several of those books, oh, and Sky Crash throughout time about Rendlesham, that was republished were through all of the books, through Philip Mantle, esteemed ufologist and researcher and publisher, Philip Mantle's Flying Disc Press. And he's a wonderful man. So you can get hold of me on www.philipkinsella.com, or mine and my brother's site, www.thekinsellatwins.com. So you can find all about us on there. And, we're all important. We're all connected on certain levels. But unfortunately, the truth is that there's a lot of mess within ufology and a lot of arguments. I tend to try and stay clear of them. But it's interesting that we look into the area of the afterlife and also ufology, and where people could not make any connections before. Well, I think that there's a lot there that's telling us there are connections, even if they are operating on interdimensional levels of reality.
Yep, I would agree with you 100%. And yeah, so I'm going to have in the links below for the viewers and the listeners, the link to at least one of your books. Some different platforms will only allow me a certain amount of space, but from
Oh.
there you can certainly find Philip's other books. And I highly recommend that you give him a read and see the amazing in-depth research Philip has done. So what I really like about Philip, well, I like lots of things about Philip, but one thing I really like about Philip is he's not only an experiencer, he's a researcher. And when you're both, when you've been in the shoes of the experiencer and then you're doing the research, I think that your comprehension of the phenomenon is much, much more deep and soulful, because we're trying to figure out what happened to us, and
Yes.
what are other people saying. And I agree with you, Philip. You know, it just seems that it seems to be human nature to be competitive, to want to be right, things like that. And not everybody is doing the personal work. But I see very much of all the beings in the phenomena as being, it's like a spectrum. And I don't think we're, with our limited perceptual arena, are able to really even hold the amount of data we would need to hold to really objectively look at the phenomena. And so I think that it's pretty futile to argue, oh, the nuts and bolts
Mm.
perspective. I have people all the time saying to me, "Where's your proof?" Well, I don't believe anything you say.
Oh, don't go down that
Until
road.
you bring it to me on a platter, the proof. But those people will never be satisfied anyway. And if they haven't had the deep spiritual transdimensional relationships with the universe, they are not going to get it, and it's not necessarily their fault. I don't know why some of us have the experiences and some don't. I don't know why. I know for myself, I'm nobody special. Seriously, I'm not putting myself down when I say that. I'm just being very matter of fact.
Same
I'm,
as. And
I'm
I always wanted to find out whether or not I was lying or the system we served was lying. Well, I'll leave
mm-hmm,
that for you to decide on that one.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I've really appreciated having you on the show today, Philip. And for those of you who are new to my channel, I have another show called The Quantum Guide Show that comes out usually every Wednesday afternoon. I'm now going live with it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon if you'd like to join us. And that, of course, is Mountain Time. It would be noon Pacific or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then I guess in England, it's a whole 7 hours after that. It would be 8 o'clock at night, wouldn't it, Philip?
Yes, unfortunately, we are forward in terms of time, so it's very much a huge gap. So, but yes, but I've enjoyed coming on your show, Karen, and linking with the wonderful guests here as well too. Those that come on to give their questions, they're all important. We are all important, literally.
Yeah, well, I agree. Everybody's important, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. So,
No?
Philip, I'm gonna say goodbye and let you go now because I know that you've had a long day, and I
Yes.
do have a couple of announcements for the viewers and the listeners, but I don't want to hold you to have to listen to all that when I know you've had a big day, and I just appreciate you so much. And I'm wishing you the very best, much love and much success in your life, Philip. Come back and visit us again.
Thank you, and the same to you too, Karen. God bless and take care.
Thank you. Whoops. Whoops. I'm sorry, Philip. I didn't mean to cut you off. I got trigger happy. So anyway, so that's Philip Kinsella. Yeah, what an interesting and very intelligent and sensitive man. I'm just so thrilled that I was able to have him on the show today. So before we go, I just have a couple of announcements. The Quantum Guide Show, which I mentioned earlier, upcoming this week is episode 175, and my guest is Jimmy Blanchard. Sorry, Jimmy Blanchett, and he's made some amazing discoveries from studying UFOs, and they've actually given him information so that he could find out all the secrets of the universe. So I know you don't want to miss that, but I want to tell you that because of Jimmy's very busy schedule, we won't actually uh, be doing the show until Thursday, July 11th at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's 7 p.m. Pacific, and that would be 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's on a Thursday. So usually the show is every Wednesday, but to accommodate Jimmy, I'm going to have him on Thursday evening. So please do mark your calendar and join us. And next week on Aliens and Angels, we're going to talk about ET, friend or foe. Let's boil it down to its basics. Friend or foe? Let's talk about it. So I hope you'll come and join our live chat so that you can participate in the conversation. I go live every Sunday so that you can participate and join the conversation and be part of it. So I don't have a guest next week, but July the 14th, ET, friend or foe. And then I have one more announcement, and that is we are arranging a summer meetup, probably in late August. Well, I guess it will be in late August. And any of you who are visiting or live in Alberta or the central Alberta area, or if you're coming this way for your holidays, you're welcome to join our meetup. We've had one already. It was a great success. That's how I got to know. Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja. They've become good friends. And it's lovely to be able to have actual physical contact with your community. So if you can join us, please do. Thank you, Don Rogers at March 4th Productions. He says, great show. Thank you both. Great information. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been lovely as usual. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. And I guess that's it for today for aliens and angels. Sorry, guys. I got screwed up. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. A very special thank you to Andy Gambino and Anthony Exemplar from the Unidentified S4 channel for creating the beautiful introduction for this podcast. Until next time, keep up the good work.